Previously on Ballz.
So when the chips are down, we turn to an absolute pillar of strength and someone who's not afraid to talk and also have a smoke while he's talking to us, is Neal Collins. Neal, good afternoon.
Hello, salty snolly.
Listen here, stop giving me gears on Twitter, okay?
Mate, that was a great interview with Self-Advice, by the way. He's a very good writer, and he's not scared to tell it like it is, unlike so many.
Yeah.
But when they get into, particularly cricket and rugby, I find in Britain and in South Africa, people writing international cricket and rugby are always scared to tell the truth. But that point he made about Amla and Callis playing in the same T20 side is absolutely spot on. They're both anchors, and you can't do with both of them.
Yeah.
You need one at one end and something sparking at the other. And his description of Richard Levy as the Mornay Sane of cricket was spot on as well. Brilliant.
I wanted to ask him about Johan Buerta, and then I just actually completely ran out of time. But I wanted to ask him about Johan Buerta, and you wonder about his captaincy and his you know, what a good leader he is. And now, you know, we see him ducking off overseas, and you feel like we've perhaps lost someone very valuable there.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the Johan Buerta thing arose as a result of Graham Smith's insecurity and continues to echo through the Proteas side as they get older. Now, we know that the Proteas went to England and destroyed a fragmented England side in the Test series. But I think at the World T20, just before that, as Telford said, we saw a Proteas side that is starting to look a little bit old. And I've been having this discussion with Pommy and Bangwa and Niels Momberg on Twitter. You know, I'm worried that they're starting to look average age 30, a little bit old. And you've got this lad Quinton de Kock and Johnny Morris, absolutely brilliant. You know, I know Johnny's dad, and I'm trying to get them both to get English passports because Kevin Peterson's getting a bit old as well.
And I see that. Do you think you'll be out here for this? You'll be playing out here in the coming weeks?
Yes, I think almost. It depends. Kevin Peterson today has announced that he signed a 4-month contract with England. If that hadn't happened, I was absolutely convinced that KP had done the deal to play for the Dolphins, his old stamping ground down in Durban, in your T20 series, with Chris Gale. But now that he's signed a 4-month contract, it's going to get a little bit tentative, so we need to see what happens in the next couple of days.
Okay.
He's given and forgotten, and he's back in the England fold by all accounts today, but there'll still be a lot of talking to be done.
Yeah. All right, well, cricket actually wasn't what we wanted to chat to you about this afternoon, but I know you're well versed in most sporting codes, so I thought I'd just get your opinion there. But
I'm also very good at idols.
Just please don't sing.
I saw yesterday. Nice catch with the strikers.
Hey, that Kaya Mtetwa
is a good striker.
A wonderful bloke. Okay, if you heard John Robbie this morning, at the end of he only got him in because we'd had him in on early breakfast, and at the end John said he's never met a more impressive man than this young Kaya, who's been absolutely sensational. I'm not a big Idols fan, neither is John, but we were both enormously impressed with the bloke, and he supports Orlando Pirates.
Big fail.
Thinks Charlie should be in the Bafana side, and he's a great fan of Manchester City and Mario Balotelli, I can inform you.
Oh, gee. There we go.
Yeah, bad. Man City, jeez.
Okay, all right. Well, I wanted to chat PSL with you this afternoon, and I'm also going to chat a little bit of international football with you, well, Bafana specifically, considering that we couldn't get Gordon Egerson on the line. But interesting times in the PSL, especially off the pitch, considering mainly what happened on the pitch, and I refer to Sundowns after their 2-0 loss to Morocco Swallows, and poor coach Johan Nieskens, and I see the club today, well, PSL setting up a task team to investigate the events from the weekend. And apart from bringing the culprits to book, what else needs to happen here?
Well, I can help them with that if they don't call me. It's quite clear to me that it wasn't as it originally looked. It looked like a terrible situation where vuvuzelas were going to be banned from AFCON because a couple of people threw vuvuzelas. What actually happened was a Sundowns fan, well known to some of the directors at Sundowns, in a blue shirt, and I know his name, he was encouraged, shall we say, to do this by a couple of people at Sundowns who think that they own the club and they deserve to have Patrice Motsepe's money flowing around their bank accounts. And I know the names. I met a Sundowns person yesterday at a coffee bar somewhere between here and Joburg, and quite clearly what happens at Sundowns is devastatingly wrong and corrupt. And for all the money that they spend, Sundowns can't get round the fact that the club is infested with ex-players who think they know better than Christo Stoichkov, the lad Habas that was and of course Johan Johan Neeskens. He's one of the legends of the game. Johan was never given the chance to run that properly. To see a 61-year-old man and a legend still in Europe cowering and afraid of his life is quite sad. And of course Johan carries on Saturday at the Lucas Maripa Stadium. They play Platinum Stars at 8 o'clock on Saturday night, and he refuses to go because he wants his money, and he knows he's been hard done by. And it's going to get worse before it gets better. What's happening at Sundowns is nothing short of a scandal in football. I've never really seen anything like it, and until that gets sorted out. But of course it's hard to sort out because Patrice Motsepe and the people around him are so powerful. I'm shocked and stunned by what I've been told subsequent to Johan Neeskens being attacked at Dobsonville over the last weekend. It's quite unbelievable. I've never heard anything like it in football.
What have you heard exactly?
What I just said is that there's 3 or 4 ex-footballers, some of them quite prominent at Sundowns, who are only too happy for a couple of fans to beat up the manager, so that the manager leaves, so that they then get to be put back in charge and get their hands on the Motsepe wallet, which isn't very well regulated at Sundowns. I can name names, but I can't right now. I'm hoping that I'll get involved in the investigation in some way so that I can put my evidence and pictures to the powers that be. But of course, discipline in the PSL, when you've got Irving Koza, the Orlando Pirates chairman, running the PSL, and Pirates were the first side where I saw real problems. I was at Orlando a month ago when their fans went mad and nothing happened. They were called in by the disciplinary people, and then on the day of the South Africa-Mozambique match, very quietly that case was postponed and put back, and there'll probably be a suspended sentence. Until you grab this thing and get hold of it, you're never going to get big crowds in South Africa because it's simply not safe to go to football, and it's not pleasant.
Obviously this kind of act is, I mean, you cannot justify this kind of behavior, but who gets punished who should get punished in this circumstance? Do you punish the club?
Yes, you punish the club. Unfortunately, Morocco Swallows need also to take some responsibility because clearly their security didn't act strongly enough at Dobsonville. They didn't stop the fans from getting into the tunnel and hitting Johan Neeskens. You saw the pictures that we were putting around. The lad at kickoff got the pictures for me. We put them in the New Age. I put them on my blog. That was Morocco Swallows security. You have to be punished for that, I'm afraid. But what really happened was that the Sundowns security and Sundowns fans are aware of who the bloke was. They protected him after he'd hit Neeskens, and they kept him away from, I think, the 2 policemen that were trying to protect Johan Neeskens at the time. I've spoken to Cabela on ETV News, the Cabela, the ex-radio bloke who does Sundowns PR, and he talked about having a meeting for fans to explain to them this is unacceptable. No, I mean, as far as I know, most Sundowns fans know who it was that hit Neeskens, but nothing will be done because he was also involved in the last incident with the manager at Sundowns. Mate, it's frightening what's happening at Sundowns with all that money from Patrice Motsepe. They should be one of the powers in South Africa. Instead of that, they're second bottom above Amazulu, who they play on Saturday night. So hell of a game, that if Neeskens really goes, if he has the guts to actually go there and coach Sundowns with all these people around him that don't want him there, that don't like him, he's a very brave man. I can't believe it.
Yeah, and like I said, you can't justify the behavior of the fans and trying to harm a coach. You can understand their frustration, given what you just said at the moment, with all the money that's there, that they sit at 14th on the PSL log.
Yes, absolutely. But if you saw the first game of the season where Sundowns beat Kaiser Chiefs 4-1, you could see that Johan Neeskens knows what to do with the players he's got, and he knows how to run a football team. He's not been a great head coach in his time. He's been a great number 2 to several people. But I've got no question that if Johan Neeskens had been given reign at Sundowns and control over the transfers and control over the players, who instead of going to him when they've got a problem, they go around the corner to Trot Malotto and other players. Mambush Mudau is one of them. There's a couple of lads there. It runs like a little bit like Orlando Pirates did when Julio Leal was there. If the players had a problem, they wouldn't go to Julio Leal, they'd go around the corner to Screamer Shabalala, and it was the same at Chiefs with Vladimir Vomosevic. The players would run straight to Bobby with their complaints, and if that happened with Sir Alex Ferguson at Manchester United, you'd get a boot in the face, like David Beckham will tell you. And South African football needs to run properly, and you've got to give the coach complete control. And if, as I hope, Gavin Hunt was to take the Sundowns job and finally manage a big side in this country, I think you'll see Gavin Hunt try to take a grip of what's happened at Sundowns and to try and oust these ex-players who think that they run the club. I'd like to see that happen. I'd love to see Gavin Hunt given a run at Sundowns with all that money, all those players, and see what he can do with what should be a great Sundowns team.
Well, that PSL task team to set up and investigate the events on the weekend. The one big story from the week. The other one is Steven Pienaar resigning from international football with immediate effect yesterday. Gordon Iggesund calling on people to respect his decision. Fair call, or has Pienaar turned his back on his country?
Well, Steven Pienaar has turned his back on his country. When David Beckham was at Manchester United, Sir Alex Ferguson used to regularly pull Paul Scholes and Ryan Giggs out of their international commitments, and Beckham would always insist on going. That's one of the reasons he fell out with Sir Alex Ferguson. Beckham always put England first. He always performed for England, and it's been remembered. David Beckham is fondly remembered, whereas Paul Scholes and Giggs not so much, especially Giggs by Wales fans, where he played 79 times for Wales, but he could have played 140 times. What Steven Pienaar has done is under pressure from Rob Moore, his agent, and David Moyes, his manager at Everton, who go on holiday together, the two of them. He's now had to withdraw from AFCON in January because Everton are second in the league. That they could get a Champions League place, which is unheard of for Everton did qualify once before, but because of the Hazel disaster, they couldn't play in the European Cup. Now suddenly they're on the brink of thinking, well, blimey, we could end in the top 4 this year. We can't let Steven Pienaar, our key attacking foil, the man who makes so many goals for Jelic at Everton, we can't let him go away for the whole of January. Have a word with Rob Moore. Rob Moore phones Gordon Iggesund. Rob Moore then denies it to BBK on the Sunday Times in very strong language, and lo and behold, what's happened? Steven Pienaar's gone. But I have a feeling that Everton don't play during World Cups, which are in the summer in England, so I've got a feeling Steven Pienaar, we haven't seen the last of him. It's whether Gordon Iggesund would take him back if he qualifies for the Brazilian World Cup, whether he'd take him back and let him play in that squad. I think he should. I think Gordon is very disappointed. It's not John Wallen's fault he couldn't get hold of Gordon today. Gordon's honeymoon is over. All the journalists have turned on him. A lot of people are criticising him not wanting to play Poland. The squad he's picked, the normal Chiefs Pirates thing. Gordon Iggesund is suddenly under the typical Bafana manager pressure, which I disagree with. I think he's done great so far. And Gordon wanted Steven Pienaar, wanted to give him a chance, wanted to put him in a Bafana side and get the best out of him. He now doesn't get that chance, and I think that's tragic.
And Bongani Khumalo to wear the captain's armband, are you in favour of that?
Yes, absolutely. Bongani Khumalo's a nice bloke. He made a very poor move to Spurs. That didn't work out for him. He's now playing in Greece with a club that's got no money, but he's doing okay.
Does anything in Greece?
Sorry?
I said, what has money in Greece?
Well, one side is sponsored by a funeral parlour. They're good at dead ball situations. There's another side sponsored by a brothel. That's how bad things are in Greek football. But Bongani Khumalo has escaped, that problem. He seems to be playing well. I thought he captained the side well. I know that Morgan Gould was Gordon's choice to remove the armband from Steven Pienaar and the pressure that brought. And I imagine Morgan Gould and Bongani Khumalo will be the two leaders in the side. But I've always said that Sia Sungweni, the Orlando Pirates lad, he's not a great talker after the game, but crikey, he's the most inspirational centre-back that I've seen out of Africa for a long, long time. Right up there with Chris Samba, who was at Blackburn, now playing in Russia. Sia Sungweni is one of those blokes. I wish I'd seen him at 22 and taken him to one of those kind of lower league clubs. He could have been another Lucas Radebe, Sia Sungweni. He's the real captain in the side, I think. But Bongani Khumalo's fine. I don't have a problem with that. Andila Jali not being picked is a huge story. There's signs of him not playing at his best this season. I think we've got to keep on giving Gordon a chance here. You've got Poland and Kenya coming up in the middle of the month, and Gordon's easy to talk to. He's a nice bloke. He seems to be pretty fair. There are a couple of strange selections he made in that first squad, but the side he's picked is as good as it can be. It's not his fault the Steven Pienaar thing's arisen at this time, and I think you've got to look at Gordon. You've got to give him some space. I mean, he can't always talk to the media. I'm trying to get him as well for 7:02 in the morning.
Hey.
And yeah, but I'm more important. And so look at the situation where Gordon has to explain to all different people. And the worst thing of all is, jokingly yesterday I put up a count. I think there's 6 Chiefs players in the squad and 4 Pirates. And immediately, and I said, but who's counting? And immediately there was a storm on Twitter about, well, what if Benny McCarthy had been fit? Does he count for 2? And then, you know, what if all these Chiefs players have been fit? What people have got to get away from in this country is that it is your club allegiance when it comes to your country. And I know in England it happens sometimes with Chelsea fans. Arsenal didn't have many England internationals for a long time because they're all foreign. But when you're watching Bafana, forget what club you support, for God's sake, and just get behind the country, because, you know, we slip down those rankings every time they come out, and now's the time. I honestly think Gordon has got what it takes, with Thomas Madagagi as his number 2, to take Bafana to where they should be in Africa, which is top 5. It's got to be.
When you look at Gordon Eggeson's selection of the guys that he's included in the team, you see that he's sort of like living up to his word when he said he's going to try and get a lot of these international players who, I mean, a lot of these guys who play overseas who are actually South Africans. Now I'm mentioning this, what's his name, the one who plays for Portugal currently, Ricardo
Nunes.
Nunes, yes.
Ricardo Nunes. Zeki Mark from Morocco says it's Nunes. I don't know. I mean, I'm not Portuguese, but Ricardo Nunes is playing in Slovakia, not Slovenia. Slovakia's domestic league isn't great. I was speaking to some high-up football lads yesterday, and they were all saying, well, Slovakia's rubbish. No, actually, they were half of Czechoslovakia in the old days. Their football system is good. Ricardo Nunes left here at 9, went to Benfica as an academy boy at 15. He didn't make it in Portugal. He's now playing in Slovakia. He's been picked. Gordon knows that that's the best way to go, because then he doesn't get it in the neck from Amakosi and the Ghost. He knows that if he picks this lad in Slayer at Peterborough, if he picks Furman at Oldham, that you know, he escapes a lot of that accusation of being, you know, club friendly, which Pitso suffered from. So I'd like to see these guys do well, but at the same time, amidst all this negativity about South African football, I actually think we're seeing a slightly better level of football here since the World Cup. Particularly this season, there's been more goals. And I think that Gordon's doing the best he can, you know, picking some of those, Kate, like you say, picking some of those overseas players that he's only seen on video. I mean, I know for a fact that he didn't know anything about Furman. He had to phone up some guys at Glasgow Rangers and Oldham to find out about him. The Peterborough lad, you know, he was told about him by Darren Ferguson, Sir Alex's son at Peterborough. I think Gordon's doing the right job. He's picking some from overseas. He's taking risks. He's trying to keep everyone happy, and, you know, ultimately he could come up. You know, the lad Furman did all right. Kagiso Dikashoy at Crystal Palace, he's becoming a legend in South London, in a very tough area with very tough clubs in the Championship to play against. These guys could be the hub of an AFCON winning side in a couple of months.
How did you say his surname?
Sorry?
How did you say his surname?
Kagiso Dikashoy. That's what the British commentators say.
Dikachi.
Dikashi, that's what I meant to say. Sorry.
Nunch, Dikachi, it's all Greek to me. But
listen, I can't pronounce half the Blue Bulls players.
No, it's tough. It's tough. I don't see one C in that Nunes name there.
Exactly.
No, it's tough. Neal, we got to wrap it up. But quickly before we let you go, we got 2 relatively big matches coming up against Poland on the 12th and then Kenya on the 16th. But how difficult is it, or is it difficult to prepare for 2 different teams with, you know, 2 very different playing styles?
Well, it's madness, isn't it? That's why Gordon wanted to get out of the Poland game. It was set up without his say-so. All the South African journalists, football writers, have had a go at Gordon for trying to pull out of the Poland game. But you can understand it. He doesn't need to play Poland at this point. They're a hard, you know, top 50 European side that you really don't want to play as you're building up to AFCON. He's got to go there into some mining city with lots of Polish people with very short hair and earrings that mostly work as labourers in London, and he's got to come up with a policy to get through that game without being embarrassed at home. Then he plays Kenya, completely different kettle of fish, in a game that he should be focused on and concentrating on. To beat Kenya at this point would be a nice little boost before AFCON, and, you know, and then to take it on. He wanted to play Mozambique again, or Mauritius, or one of these sides where he can actually play the African way and examine what he's got properly. So I think Poland's a dead loss. I can't see us getting away with the result there, and I think Kenya is the important one to look at. Do we outplay Kenya? Whether we beat them thoroughly or not. The way we outplayed Mozambique was brilliant, although they had a very weak side out. Let's have a look. And then obviously on the 13th of this month, we'll start to find out the other 15 sides coming to AFCON and see exactly what we've got to face. And the real preparations start, I think, the month after that. But that's not much time, is it? Gordon has to reach those semi-finals at AFCON, otherwise he's gone. That's what they're saying.
All right, Canucks, last question, then we got to wrap it up.
Okay, last question. Ajax Cape Town ex-air coach, could we see the return of Ruud Krol back to South Africa?
Yeah, that's what I'm being told. You want to keep a very close eye on the big, tall string bean that's called Matthew Booth in terms of coaching and management down there. He's getting to an age where George Kavitas could be interested in using him on the coaching side. Just a little thing I'd picked up, but I'd like to see Ruud Krol back. I like him. I've spoken to him. He's a nice bloke. He's got the Dutch connection, the Ajax connection, although it ended badly for him in Amsterdam. But I've got a feeling that the Ajax are going to stump us all again and bring some youngster in, from their coaching structure, which is very good at Ajax Amsterdam. Stekelenburg never had the experience, didn't come off, didn't know enough about the way South African football runs, and things aren't easy at Ajax at the moment. The Committee's brothers aren't always the easiest people to deal with. It's a great source of football. They've got one of the best academies in the country, but I hear things are really tough down there, and the Committee's reign isn't the most easy to work under. So maybe Ruud Krol has heard that, and maybe Johan Neeskens will go down there. They don't use vuvuzelas as freely down there.
Yeah. Thanks, Neal.
I think Krol would be a good choice, but is the club running properly? It doesn't look it to me. Blimey, that 5-1 against Amatux was a shocking finish, and they're a big club. They're a good club, well run. Should be doing better than that.
We're going to have to leave it there, Neal. Thanks so much for joining us on Ballz Visual Radio this afternoon. And I hope you get Gordon Egerson for your early morning show.
Have you got some kind of do coming up in Hatfield?
Yes, we do, actually. We've got it this Friday at the Dross in Hatfield. We're doing a whole series of Dross broadcasts from now until the end of November. Every Friday.
That old bloke that sometimes works for you that's not very good at golf, is he going?
Oh, what's his name again?
I don't know what his name is.
Darren something. Yeah, I think he's going to be there. Yeah, I wouldn't bank on it though, but he might be there.
Okay, mate.
All right, so hopefully maybe you can join us.
That's Hatfield Dross.
Hatfield
Dross. That's a great name for a pub, isn't it? Dross.
The Landros.
Why can't they call it the Pig and Whistle or something? I don't know. The Dross. Okay.
It's very South African.
Might see you there. All right.
All right. There you go. Neal Collins. Cheers, Neal.
Cheers, Neal.
Here we go, Neal Collins.
Back to the Bulls at the bottom of the Curry Cup, Kate.
Go away.
Go away now. Joining us on Ballz Visual Radio this afternoon. Honestly, he doesn't stop talking.
Never.
We started speaking to him at 20 to 4. It's now 1 minute past 4. We asked him 2 questions. He just hoys. So Neal Collins giving us his insights on Stephen Pienaar, on what's going on at Sundowns, as well as what's going on at Ajax Cape Town. So yeah, some insightful stuff there from a man that knows a lot, not only about soccer, but plenty other sports as well.
2 p.m. to 6 p.m. Mondays to Fridays live on Ballz.co.za. Ballz.co.za.